Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of 50 Conversations with 50 Strangers. I have today with me someone who I really, I only saw him, talk to him for a few minutes, literally 18 seconds ago. His name is Podcast Paul. I know nothing else about him besides that. And it's my honor to just sit with him. He told me that he is in his car because we are filming this or doing this right as sightseeing. That during these COVID times and during all this time with he's building a house is what he told me. There's two families together in his house with him. So in order to have any freedom and space and quiet, he had to come into his truck, and so that's where he is. Um, and I can't tell you how many people are using their cars now as a vehicle for them to be able to have some free time and be alone and just be able to get away from everything that's going on, not because they need to, but just because that's the place where they are uninterrupted. um, Podcast Paul, welcome to 50 Conversations with 50 Strangers. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I lost your picture.
Yeah,
There,
give it a second. That's one of my friends calling. Sorry.
That's okay. That's all right. All right. So I want to do a little lightning round with you. It'll just be very fast, very quick questions, very quick answers, just to sort of get an idea of of how you relate to the world a little bit. Very simply, dogs or cats?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm gonna have to go with dogs, although I love cats.
Okay. All right. So you are one of the few. I mean, I guess there's some people that love dogs and cats, but normally, like, often it's dogs. I'm a dog person or I'm a cat person. So
Both.
I love that you're both. It already tells me a ton about you. Coffee or coffee or tea?
It's coffee.
Okay. Um, would you say you're an in the box person or an out of the box person?
Definitely out of the box.
Okay. Uh,
Yes.
and and what's more important, being able to speak your voice or being able to listen to other people's voices?
I would have to say listen because well, I know it's lightning round, but go ahead. I'll just say listen for the moment.
Okay, you can
Yeah.
say, we can make our lightning round be our lightning round. You can stop.
Well, I believe we have to kind of train ourselves to listen. Many times when someone's speaking, you're already thinking of how you're going to retort, and it's you lose a lot of that ability. So listening is harder to me. I think it's and also more important.
I love that. Are you somebody who fits into the world or is different than the world?
Oh man, I would have to say different than the norm. Yes.
Wow. Wow, I love that. Head or heart? Where do you operate from?
Well, this is going to sound strange, but I'm gonna have to say heart right now because I'm into meditation, so there is no head.
Okay. I love it. Uh, leader or follower?
I think I'm a born leader. Yes.
Fabulous. Isn't it amazing how just what was that, seven choices, quick choices, and already how, not that it boxes you or paints a picture, but it starts to give a backdrop of how, of who the person is that we're talking to, right, or who the person is that we're listening to. And I really appreciate you just taking the time to honestly answer those things. So I asked you when we started, how are you? And so often when we ask how are you, it's just how are you, and we answer fine, I'm great. I really like to ask you again, how are you? And I
Well,
really want you to know I want to hear how you are.
sure. I try to mine every day. I try to mine the most joy I can out of the day. So yes, I do have bad times and I have challenges, but and I'm constantly thinking about the struggles that other people have. And I believe that we're really just lucky to be born. I didn't pick my parents. I didn't pick where I was born. So we're just kind of lucky to be where we're at and having the things we have. And I think that we can look at it two different ways. I can wake up every morning and go, everything sucks. I don't have this. I don't have that. but I think that's the difference between wisdom is I choose to not view life that way, and not in a way that, I'm just being silly. I'm serious about it, and I really appreciate every moment, every morsel of every day if I can.
Fabulous. Where did that come from?
Uh,
How did you come upon that way of living?
a life of living very hard before this.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, I was pretty much self-will run riot since as a child, and going through adversity is you can look at it as a good thing or a bad thing, and for me it was a very good thing. um, and it wasn't an epiphany, it happened over time.
Wow. Fabulous.
Mhm, mhm.
So who are you? I mean, tell like I don't normally, if I when I do a podcast, I list the bio and I tell people who you are. We have no idea. We've never met each other, correct? I mean, this
We
is our
haven't,
first.
um,
So will you
although
tell?
we did go to different high schools together.
Okay, we went to different high schools together. I love that. Um, will you tell people that are listening who you are and what's important to you?
Sure. um, wow, first of all, I'm a human. um, and I make mistakes. I guess I don't know if you want a brief overview of my life. um, I I think some of your questions kind of got to the point. I'm kind of an out of the box thinker. I ask questions about everything. Um, I I'm constantly seeking the truth. Um, I see pain in people that I haven't seen before. Um, I'm a person that's lived probably half of his life kind of almost in a dream, in the sense that I didn't I didn't feel I could see the forest through the woods. And then I kind of had an awakening. It started strangely enough with a book. I actually have it. It's called "Why Beautiful People Have More Daughters," and it's
Wow.
kind of an evolutionary psychology book, and by Alan S. Miller. And that was kind of the first moment where I started seeing statistics and data that didn't jive with what I was seeing, but I checked out the sources and everything seemed to be correct. So it kind of I started looking at data and the why people do things, and started realizing that my version of reality was not the real version that's out there. And so I started digging deeper, and now I'm on this huge rabbit hole. Currently it's, do we actually have free will? So,
Wow.
and that's a deep, deep rabbit hole.
Deep rabbit hole.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, and one of the things I love about having these conversations is that we've known each other all of about 18 seconds, and yet there's so many things that already I can relate to in you and feel similar with you about. I mean, one of the things and one what happened for me in writing the book The Mosaic, which is somewhere back here, I can't tell which place it um, is that, and I think I shared this with you, but I'll share it for the audience to hear. It's a story about a boy who loses his parents 2 years apart on the same day. And when he asks the adults where his parents are, they tell him they're in a place called heaven. So this little boy sets out in search of the place called heaven because he just can't imagine how he would live his life without the love of his parents. And the people that he meets along the way are not the rabbis and the ministers and the priests and the shamans and the gurus and the yogis. They're common ordinary people. They're the street worker and the homeless man and the blind woman and the waitress and the gardener. And he's a little bit of a snob when he's starting out, and he wonders, why am I sitting with these people? What, like, I'm on a search to find heaven. But then he hears, okay, you're on a search. You're on a journey. There's no rush to this. Why don't you, at least because you're with them, take a minute and sit with them and see what it is they want to say? Just listen to them. And in 100% of the cases, he realizes the person he first saw is not at all the person he's sitting with once he spent a few moments with them.
Mm.
And when it happens over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, he realizes that he doesn't see the world the way the world is. He sees the world the way he is. And he wonders what would happen if I could see the world the way it is. And at that moment, he looks over and sees a monk unzipping the sky and inviting him to walk through to a parallel reality where he meets the wise one, who is the keeper of the Mosaic. And so, for anyone who is intrigued by that story, I invite you to read the Mosaic. It's available on Amazon. But I couldn't help think the reason I'm sharing it is because what you said about seeing reality, and what is the reality, and is that the reality that you see, or is that the reality that is? It's so simpatico with what I feel through this process. Um, so, what do you do on a day-to-day level? How do you make a livelihood?
I am a strategic account manager for a Fortune 500 tech company, and I've been very lucky. I've been with the same company going on 20 years in January, and I, I do. I'm a podcaster right now on the side, but I think it's the relationship with people, not really the business side of the account, why I've kept these accounts so long, and the ability to listen to what the customer really is saying. And sometimes it's not what the words that are coming out of their mouth. They could be having a bad day, or that, as people, we just broadcast our pain. And if you're really paying attention to what they're listening, uh, or excuse me, paying attention to what they're saying, then you can pick up a lot more than actually the words.
I love that. I I saw again, complete resonance with everything you're saying, and one of the reasons I love doing this show is because when in the first 6 minutes of talking to someone I don't know, we already resonate completely on two primary patterns of belief system. It makes
Mhm.
me wonder how much more of the world are we agree, do I have similarity with, in
Yeah.
a world that wants to make us so different. But I'm 100% behind you. I'm on a mission to invite people to listen, because I don't think people hear very much. I think they speak a lot and listen a little. And when you have the ability to listen, you hear more than the words that are being said. With that being said, what do you think the world would like you to hear?
Oh, that's another rabbit hole I'm kind of going through, and that is consciousness. I mean, if you think about a time before we had complex language, and we were humans were a lot like dogs and eagles and stuff. You would never think about anyone looking at those creatures saying, what does the universe want from you? Um, and I think that we've kind of, I don't know, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I don't know, you know, what I don't know if there is an answer to that question. As far as what the world wants for me, I think it's just my day-to-day interactions with people. It's so funny how you see someone smile when you're walking past them, and it makes you smile, and you think, wow, that may be the only smile they get to have today. So if we could all just be a little bit kinder to each other in moments where it really matters, that may be the biggest thing you can give. That, and taking care of your family and other people's family, and I think that's what I'm here to do, especially as a species. Um, is it hummingbirds or something that will take in another, basically a small hummingbird if it loses its parents, and there's not many species that'll do that, and we're kind of one of them. And I don't know. I guess that's a long way of saying I have no idea what I'm doing.
Okay. And I love how eloquently you said that, right? Uh, uh, and I'm less asking right now what your purpose is, as much as you're a person who has trained yourself to listen, not only to the words that people are saying with accounts that you have in business, Do you believe that inanimate objects speak to us as well as animate objects?
Wow, never considered that. My gut reaction would be to say no, uh, but I'm also a musician, so different things have feel like they have different frequencies to me. So I don't know. I would need to consider it further. I haven't really. I don't have an opinion on that. Why do you?
Absolutely. Like, for instance, do you feel the environment is trying to say something to you, to us? Do you feel through the changes that are happening on Earth, the Earth is trying to say something to us? Do you feel business is trying to say something to it? Our businesses are trying to say something to us. And I'll tell you why. When I wrote this book, The Mosaic, I
Mhm.
thought it was going to be the easiest book to write in the whole world. I wrote a book for a hotel to brand the hotel. It took me 6 weeks to tell their story. They didn't have a story. I created a story for them from their core values, and I wrote their story. This was my story. I thought this was going to take 2 months maximum. 3 years later, I was sitting, pulling my hair out, waking up in the middle of the night, trying to understand why this book wasn't coming. And
Hmm.
I literally decided I should just ask him. I should say, what is it that's happening? What is it that I'm not seeing that you're trying to say to me that I can't hear? And just like we're having a Zoom call now, the characters in my book appeared like a Zoom. Like, you may be a fictional character that I don't even realize. I mean, I might not be having this conversation, but you seem real, right? In
Yep.
in in the same way, they seemed real to me because they came up on a screen like this. And one by one, they said to me, "We don't want to say what you're writing for us to say. We want you to just listen to what we're saying to you and say what we want to say." And as soon as I did that, the book was done in 6 weeks. So I believe everything in the world talks to us, but that doesn't mean you do. That's why I'm asking, do you and you said inanimate objects, you don't know if they do talk to us. So do you believe the environment is speaking to us through global warming, or do you believe in global warming? What do
Yes, I do. I guess when you said the word talk, I was thinking more of the literal sense. Yeah, I mean, I think and, I'm gonna get a lot of hate mail over this, but I think capitalism's going away. I think we have to, as far as the earth, have to be more in a way of thinking. So products and stuff that should be coming out, uh, they should. You should think of it as more of a circular life cycle of every product, everything we use, and and kind of if you think of all the boats rising with the tide, we've done a good job. Capitalism's done a great job of getting us where we're at, but I think we're kind of going through a birth in a sense of a new way of looking at things, and it's no longer acceptable to look at kids starving in Africa, global, you know, the climate change, and the way that we're treating this rock that we're on. We have to start thinking differently, and I think we are, but it's not sexy, and people don't like that.
Yeah,
So I think that it's gonna take a lot more nuanced conversation and a lot more digging down into things and the meme society that we're or culture that we're in. It's very hard to do that. They just want a few sentences about something and that's it, and that's unfortunate right now.
yeah. Um, so knowing that, what would you like to say to the world?
Oh, mine's an easy message: meditate more and be kind to each other. Once you once you understand that any thought that you have that comes into your head is is just a thought, it's an object, and there is really no thinker of thoughts. Everything you're saying right now about your book, you didn't there was no thinker of thoughts for you to talk about your book. It just came out of thin air. And once you realize that those thoughts in your head and you really start analyzing the thoughts in your head, you'll realize it's really a s show in your own mind. So once you can get that um, sorted out, I think we're going to be a lot better society. I mean, you think about just what 50 years ago, working out and physical health was kind of ridiculous. I didn't know anybody doing that. That maybe some people were jogging or whatever, but it's gonna. I think we're gonna have the same revolution with meditation. We're gonna realize how important that is, and it's really gonna push us into the next uh, few hundred years in a good way. I hope.
So, to people who don't meditate, why is meditation so important?
Okay, a good analogy is, when you're dreaming, you don't really have the option to step outside the dream. You're going along with whatever. It's a bad dream, a good dream, whatever. And because and kind of living your life is the same way. Um, and what meditation does is it lets you look at that dream from outside the dream. So you get to question, why did I look at that car and think, bad thoughts about the person driving it in front of me? You start asking questions about all these thoughts you have, and a lot of times you realize that you're thinking negatively constantly. It's just a barrage. And if you try to just focus on your breath for 10 seconds without thinking of a thought, it's almost impossible for most people. But once you do, and you realize that you're inundated with thoughts, you realize that you're really in a dream. And to step out of that and see the show for what it is, all the good and bad stuff, it gives you an advantage, and it also helps you be more sympathetic to people, others, and you'll start to see when they speak to you all the pain that's going on in their head.
Yeah.
Uh, not very
I,
not very eloquent, but
oh no, it's beautiful. I I can again completely relate because I've meditated now every day for 45 years, not missing a day.
excellent,
Okay,
excellent.
so I and for me the what I love about meditation is that everybody has their own experience with it and everybody's experience is real. For me the beauty of meditation is that I see life as like a wheel and I see most people live on the outside of the wheel. And so the
Yeah,
faster life spins, the more they get thrown off because it's just going very fast, right? Meditation allows me to, through the spokes of that wheel, to come to the hub. And so no matter how fast the wheel spins around me, the hub moves very little. And when I'm centered in this hub, I can work from my center rather than being tossed around through the world that is. It doesn't mean that I don't get tossed also. Things happen that sometimes will toss me, but more and more it's becoming rarer and rarer because I just know that if I just take a breath and an inhalation and an exhalation and I just sit with that breath as I'm inhaling and I'm with the inhalation and I'm with the exhalation, what comes from that is that is the experience of this moment. That is now. That is all that's happening now. It's who I was, all my worries, all my thoughts. So every day when I just sit, I have the opportunity to just experience what this moment called now looks like.
yes.
And that moment called now doesn't have pains of the past or anxieties of the future or anxieties of the past and pains of the future. It's just like, how am I right now? And
Oh yeah.
right, and it's that experience most times is more pleasant than the worries of the past or the anxieties of the future.
It's a superpower. I mean, if someone would have told me 20 years ago, you get to decide how long you want to be upset. Wow.
Yeah.
You mean I can do this in minutes? I can decide to just reset. It's amazing, and I love it. I love your analogy about the wheel. I've never heard that
Uh,
before. I've heard about some people feel like they're going underwater, and everything's kind of muted, and they can see kind of the rest of the world and through that lens. And I think that's interesting. But I love it. It's interesting that you meditate.
oh yeah, I've done it for 45 years now. I don't know life without it. I was a monk for 10 years
Ah,
living in a monastery. So
wow.
we did a lot of meditation. Um, what makes you happy?
At the moment, it's my 5-year old. He's about to turn 6, and I'm 50, which is insane. But I'm getting to, I have 2 older daughters, and that was a great experience. But I'm now, I guess, through meditation, I'm getting to kind of see the world through his eyes and enjoy it the same way. And he's been doing meditation for a year,
Wow.
with my app, and I know life is going to be different for him because of that. So
Wow.
I'm really excited. Yeah.
I love that because, and for kids to start at that age, it's such a beautiful thing because they don't have the resistance that we have later on as teenagers or as adults or whatever. It's beautiful. And they'll grow up with it and it'll be common for them to have those experiences. Um, Let me try one more time, just, and it might not be anything different, but I just somehow feel to ask it again. If the world were trying to say something to you, not around your purpose, but just to you personally, what do you think the world wants to say to you?
What does the world want to say to me? Hmm. Wow, I don't know. I see a negative view and a positive view. Um, you know, my digital world seems like it's wanting to drive me nuts, and my my world when it comes to people around me, and friends I have, uh, is very supportive. So, you know, I I haven't spent any time in thinking about the planet as far as when you say the world, what it's trying to say to me. I'm curious to know what it's trying to say to you. Maybe that would help me out.
Sure. I feel very, very connected to a world that feels disconnected. And what I feel the world is asking me or inviting me to do is do sort of what I'm doing now here with you, of just have conversations with people that I don't know, to just sort of give myself and people and the world around me some context that the things that make us different are so small compared to the things that make us the same, which are so large. Like, who cares what color our skin is? Who cares what nationality we are? Who cares how much money we have or don't have? I've had the opportunity to sit with some of the richest people in the world as friends, to be in their living rooms and dining rooms, to know their children and to meet their parents, and to sit around the table and just talk about things that are going on in our lives. And they would help me and I would help them, but not because that we were helping each other, just because we were sharing our lives together. And I've also had the same beautiful opportunity to sit on street corners with the poorest of the poor and to do the same exact thing, to sit with them and just talk with them about life and ask them about their life and have them, and they ask me about mine, and just to sit together and share with each other what life looks like to each other. And one of the things that I've seen, Paul, is that it doesn't matter how big a house or how broken a cardboard box. It doesn't matter what color the skin or what religion someone practices. It doesn't matter what border they live behind or who they or how or what language they speak. Every single person that I've met with says the same thing. They just want to feel loved and accepted. They want to feel listened to and heard. They want to feel acknowledged and validated. And what I realized is I don't need a college diploma to do that. I don't need to be a minister in some church. I don't need to be have a coaching practice. All of those things I have, but I don't need any of those things. All I need to do is have the love and compassion to sit with somebody and just take time to listen to them. And in that simple process, especially in this COVID time, people who are alone and isolated suddenly feel like they're not alone anymore. People who suddenly think, well, I can't like you because you're Jewish or you're black or you're poor or you're rich, all of a sudden realize, hold it, we have so much more that we're alike in. And in the image of a mosaic, it's the diversity of all the pieces that makes the mosaic interesting. If it were all the same color, if it was all the same size, it would be interesting, I guess. But it would get boring after a while. But all these different colors and shapes and sizes and textures makes the mosaic this exquisite piece of artwork that on their own is none of the pieces are as beautiful as. And so I feel my what the world is saying to me is it's time to reconnect the disconnected world and do whatever you can to sort of get in front of people, sit with people, and turn the momentum around from this desire to separate and attack and fight to this to this place where, hey, when someone hurts our kids, no matter what color we are, we feel sad.
Mhm.
When someone hurts us, we feel sad. When we help another person, we feel good. And all of us feel that, no matter how much money we have. The guy on the cardboard box has feels it the same way as the guy in the mansion. And so what's really important? What's at the core of what we believe? What is really essential to who we are? And why are we looking at the peripheries and giving that so much importance when at the core there's something so much more valuable for us to see? Does that make sense?
It does. I'm kind of playing devil's advocate for a second,
Please.
but so I'm trying to learn to embrace the yin and yang of things, and that would be, we all have issues that come up day to day, and that's going to be normal. But to actually feel grateful for having problems, quote unquote, um, and so I'm kind of. It's easy for me to slip into everything you just said. I agree with, but to understand the yin and yang of things, the good alongside with the evil, is kind of an interesting journey for me. So, um, and I don't know where that comes from. Maybe it comes from a tribalism type, mentality. We have old hardware running newer software. So I don't know. It's I'm trying to understand the world, and that your quote of feeling connected to a disconnected world is sometimes overwhelming for me. And when I see um, so many people want to hurt other people, or uh, I know they're doing it out of pain, but it's one of those things where I don't know. So a scenario would be someone comes to your house and he's going to kill you. You know, a lot of the things that we say and the good intentions we have, when the rubber meets the road, it can be very scary. And I think those are the things I try to sort out sometimes on a daily basis. No, I don't think of it all the time, but um, I don't know. I'm kind of playing devil's advocate
Yeah,
too.
I think what you're saying, if I get it correctly, is sort of what Mike Tyson said: is you can believe anything you want until you get punched in the face for the first time,
Yeah.
right?
Well, there you go. Exactly.
Right. And so I completely get it. And can I share a story with you? Would that be okay with
Sure.
you?
Sure. Sure.
Um, the person that I love more than anybody in this world is my daughter. She's 30 years old now, and she has a developmental delay. I never thought that I would be able to deal with be a dad of a person with a developmental delay. Um, and she just doesn't have the ability to speak like you and I can speak. And so she counts on me to understand her because most of the world doesn't understand her. And I'm not talking about having conversations like Sartre or uh, philosophical treatises, right? I'm talking about just basic human needs things. And most of the times, because I know her and feel her and feel so connected to her, I get most of the time what she's saying. But there are a lot of times that I don't. And when I don't get what she's saying, what she'll do is she'll raise her voice. and she'll say it louder. But it isn't because of the volume that I don't understand her. It's because of her clarity. I don't understand the words. When she tries and speak louder, sometimes to her credit, she says it louder in a different with a different way of saying it. She says the words a little bit differently, and I get it somehow, but most time not. Now she's just saying it louder, and I don't understand her. When she says it louder and I don't understand her, then she gets frustrated and she starts to throw a tantrum. And that can be in the middle of a restaurant. It could be while their friends over at our house. It could be while we're walking on downtown. It could be while we're driving in a car. She just will lose it and go and throw a tantrum. And when I still don't get it, then she'll come running at me and try and rip my shirt or bite me. And Paul, I think I'm an intelligent guy, but this went on for about 15 years. And it happens sometimes. Thank God it didn't happen every day, but some days it would happen 3, 4, 10 times a day.
Mm.
And finally, after 15 years of trying to, and I had multiple times where I would try and have conversations with her. Finally, I said to her, Lisa, you know how important it is for me to understand you. I mean, I love understanding you. I want to understand you, but I don't understand you now. Can you try and tell me what you're trying to tell me without using your words? Is there another way you can communicate it to me? And she went from the midst of her rage into this beautiful smile that just completely melted my heart. And in perfect English, she said, I am Daddy. And I looked at her and I said, I'm sorry, what the hell do you mean you are Daddy? How are you doing that? And she took her finger and she put it to the side of her head. And what I understood from that was that because she couldn't speak, she had the ability to put thoughts into my head because that was more advanced for her because she wasn't able to communicate, but nobody understood that that's what she was doing. And I said to her, you little son of a gun, have you been putting thoughts in my head? And she broke out into this contagious laughter, and we just laughed. Her laughter made me laugh, and my laughter made her laugh, and we laughed for what was probably 5 or 10 minutes, but it seemed like it was 15 years. There was a revelation in that moment that she finally communicated to me that how she could communicate to me. And you know that was 4 or 5 years ago, and from that moment on, she hasn't yelled, she hasn't tantrum, she hasn't attacked. The story would be phenomenal if it ended there. But Paul, what I realized is that every single person I meet goes through that same progression. Every company that I work with, every government leader that I work with, every business CEO that I work with, every school that I work with, all follows that same progression. When they speak and they don't get heard, they yell. When they yell and they don't get heard, they create havoc. They try and create chaos and do whatever they do. When they create chaos and they don't get heard, they try to destroy. They blow up a building, they shoot a town square, they end a marriage, they end a reputation, they try and destroy something. And it's all because people don't feel heard. And so that little girl, developmentally delayed as she is, has given me the greatest lesson that I could ever learn. So when that guy comes to the door and wants to harm me, I don't know that I can debunk that all within those moments, but I can say to him, "Hey, I'm not here to hurt you. What is it you really want to say to me?" And I've been amazed at how often tense situations have been diffused almost instantly by just taking the time to say, I care about you. I'm willing to listen to you. Tell me what it is you want to say. I may not agree with you, but that's nobody in my 65 years of being alive has said to me, Danny, it's important to me that you agree with me. When they felt loved and accepted, when they felt acknowledged and heard, when they felt listened to and understood, they've been okay that some of my best friends have fakakta beliefs that I would never believe, but they're my best friends. And I could care less what they believe because I love them and they love me. I lost your photo. There you go. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. Mine was a little bit different of a thought experiment. Let me try to pose it a different way. My mother is 75. She has Alzheimer's, late stage, and I've kind of learned through trial and error that that was her calling.
Uh,
She she's probably going to call about 5 more times, and I
yeah,
apologize.
that's all right.
But yeah, what it's not what she's saying I have to listen to. It's the frequency of the phone calls, and instead of her saying I'm not feeling good right now, it manifests itself in different ways, and it's almost an illusion, or she'll try to mask it with different scenarios. And it's taken me a while, but now I understand. Oh, wait, she's having a bad day today, so I have to look for those clues and deal with it, you know, in a loving manner. And I can imagine, how that feels, having the
Absolutely.
daughter. So yeah, I just think it's interesting. But I guess one of my fears is, you know, sometimes I'll listen to conversations, philosophers. I love Sam Harris, Daniel Dennett, Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, and I think to myself, are they looking at me and my simple mind like I would look at my mother's right now? And that's my biggest fear, is I'm not going to be on that plane that they're on. And that's kind of where I strive to be, just for the uh to see the expanse of everything a little bit better. And I don't know, I feel like sometimes I'm there and sometimes I'm not, but it's
So,
interesting.
so I worked with a major publishing house for 10 years, and I was the person that many of the authors came to speak to. They were changing millions of people's lives on the stages, but often in the day-to-day life, their life was a shambles.
Yeah.
And there weren't many people that they could talk to about that, because everybody idolized them and looked up to them, and they couldn't burst the bubble. I just was me. I could care less who somebody was. I just want to be there and support people in whatever way I can. And they would tell me their stories. They would tell me the things that went on. All of us are the same way you are. None of us, Jesus Christ included, have all perfect days. And it really doesn't matter how many one person has or how many another person has, in my point of view. All that matters is that as often as we fall down, we get back up again. We don't have to run across the finish line, in my point of view. We just have to slither across it. If we can crawl across it, slither, pull ourselves to the end of this, and make it through. And if we don't, it's okay too. We just continue to do what we continue to do. But to me, I've lost my integrity so many times, until I realized that my integrity was my ability to realize that it's lost and get back up and try again,
Yeah.
rather than just sit and say, "Oh, now I don't have integrity. What a terrible thing. Oh, what a terrible person you are." You know, you just get back up again. And the beauty is, no matter how many times you fall, just the ability to stand up one more time and just say, "I'm here. I'm bruised. I'm battered. I'm beaten." Sometimes I'll watch like the MMA guys, and they win the fight, but you look at their bodies, they're right there, they've been annihilated, right?
Oh yeah.
And yet they've won. And I wonder if there's not some message in that's really how life is. Sometimes we just get annihilated, but it's okay.
I know we're short on time, but you stepped, or you touched on uh, uh, you brought up Jesus Christ's name. I'm just curious. I mean, I'm not religious, but I can't tell if you are or not. I can't. It's interesting because most people I can figure it out in about 5 minutes.
I love that you can't tell if I am or not.
I can't. No.
So I don't practice a religion. I sort of consider myself to have a spiritual outlook on life.
Mhm.
I was one day away from being ordained a rabbi. I spent 10 years in a monastery as a monk. So I know religiosity.
Mhm.
It never felt it as often as I went looking in my life for why the man that I loved the most, my dad, would be taken from me for no reason. It seemed like he died too early on. I was 13 years old when he died. He was my hero. I looked up to him, and then one day he was gone
Mhm.
with no preparation. And so what I tried to do is make sense of a senseless world. And I tried to understand how that could be. And so part of what I did is I made reasons if I would have done this, he wouldn't have died, which had nothing to do with anything. But it made me feel more comfortable blaming myself for something, because then there was a cause and effect rather than this random world that I lived in, which was too hard for me to understand.
Mhm.
But that's not the real world either. So I don't I love people that are religious. I love people that aren't religious. Like,
Same.
right? It's
Yeah.
not an important criterion to me.
I'm
Um,
fascinated with the Bible. I've read it cover to cover, and I think it's got a lot of good messages in there. Mike, I have a question for you. Um, how, and I ask everybody this. I love their answers. Do you believe in free will?
yes, but I don't know that my answer would be what you expect it to be.
Go ahead.
I, um, and I'm not sure of my answer. But as I sit here today, what I believe is we have free will, but we have free will before we come here on earth. So
Oh,
if we look at the world and the world of movies, we determine the movie that we're going to be a part of. We choose the actors, we choose the actresses, we choose the scenes, we choose exactly what's going to happen, we choose how it's going to happen, we choose the pains that we're going to get, and the beauties that we're going to have, and we have complete free will in the forming of our movie to make our movie be whatever we want it to be. The question is, once we act in the movie, I don't know how much free will we have. I can't say that I don't think we have any, because I think we can alter the things. The my One of my teachers that was very influential to me said, "Yeah, we have free will. We can ride. We're on a train going from point A to point B. Our free will is, do we want to be in the front of the train or in the back of the train? But we're on that train. Do we
mm,
want to sit in the dining car? Do we want to sit, and talk to people along the way? So we have that free will, but we've already decided that we're on the train going to the destination. And so getting off the train, we don't have that free will to do that. But we give ourselves the belief system that we are more important than we are. Free will is just saying I'm more important than I think I
which we do all the time.
am, right? Uh, and, but once, but I sort of believe, at least right now, as I'm sitting here, and it could change tomorrow, because I
Yeah.
could see something different or hear something different. But I sort of believe that we have free will in the moment we created the scenario that we decided to be a part of. And once we signed on to be an actor in this script, you can't, an actor doesn't come in and say, I don't want to say that line. I'm going to say this line. It's just that they've made an agreement. This is the movie. This is the lines. This is what's going to happen. You don't have free will in the movie to change it around. You act out the movie. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows?
Yeah, I want a bumper sticker that says that. I could be wrong.
That's right. I could be wrong. I am wrong more times than I'm right. So anyway, to honor your time and to honor time of the listeners, in closing up, would there be anything that you would like to suggest people do to
Oh, go ahead. I'm
alter
sorry.
the momentum of the world that we're living in right now, or do you feel fine with the way the world's going?
I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but I'm so glad you meditate. I just can't. I try to stress to everyone I come across that um, it's changed me, and it's everybody thinks it's this woo woo thing, and but I just wish everyone would just give it a try. And I think that um, if we all practice meditation, it would be a different reality for everyone, and I think it would be better.
Um, Paul, if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
My website is www.onlysixmoretimes.com. I have 15 podcasts recorded. I'm waiting till I have 30, and I will be releasing them. You can go to my website and get on um, my email, and I'll be sending out updates. And only six more times is a little tongue in cheek of how many times we mess up. I used to work with this old guy. He would say, "I'm only doing this six more times," and I thought that was funny.
Fabulous. Will you send me all of that information and all of your social media links, and also a headshot of you so that I can put this up, put it on?
You bet. And
Okay.
where can I find your book? Amazon?
Amazon. Yeah. Amazon. You can
Excellent.
definitely find it. I would love you to read it. I'd love to hear what you think. I'd love to hear how you experience it. I think you'll have fun with it.
Well, thank you. I will.
Thank you so very much, Paul. What an honor to take that you would give this time to sit with someone who you didn't know and to share in such a deep way what you feel and what you believe. I'm really touched by it, and I'm really thankful for this opportunity to meet. I hope this isn't the end. I hope it's the beginning of many more conversations. And for those of you who are listening to 50 Conversations with 50 Strangers, um, perhaps these conversations will ignite something in you. What can you do to get to know somebody that you never thought you would know before, or never had the opportunity to know? How could you speak with them and listen to them that might make your life and their life richer? I know this conversation with Paul has made my life richer, and I feel very thankful for it and blessed for it. So thank you again for being here. For those listening, thank you for being a part of this conversation. Until next
Thank
time.
you.
Ciao.